whenever there's going to be a story about talking about old PlayStation franchises that have been left behind in the dregs of time, I kind of need to talk about it, because Sony has gone off in a different direction, focusing on their main franchises and leaving some of their older franchises that were largely worked on through or by, in some way, by Japan studios. It's kind of unfortunate to see. I mean, like, I wish we could get another Fat Princess. I wish we could get another Ape Escape. I wish we could get more new Jak and Daxter titles, for example. I wish we could get more of this type of stuff, but unfortunately, you know, some games are left to the past and all we can do is play remasters and re-releases on those older platforms or just emulate them outright. That being said, though, the director of the infamous franchise says he'd love to revisit the series, but Sucker Punch is currently busy with Ghost of Yotei. What Nate Fox said is, I would love to see an Infamous Trilogy re-release. So, for those of you guys that don't know, Infamous is a franchise that's been around from the PS3 generation, and the whole series consists of 5 games. Infamous 1, Infamous 2, Infamous Festival of Blood, which is kind of like a side story to Infamous 1 and 2, Infamous Second Son, which was the next mainline title technically, which has nothing to do with Infamous 1 and 2, and finally Infamous First Light, which is basically a side game to Infamous Second Son, where you play as one of the side characters, Fetch, and not the main character, Delton Rowe from Second Son. So you largely play as Cole, the main character of Infamous 1 and 2 in 1 and 2. You play as Cole in Infamous Festival of Blood, even though it's technically not canon. So that's basically everything you need to know about the Infamous franchise. And honestly, like, Infamous 1 and 2 were really, really good games. They were a lot of fun. Festival of Blood was basically a sort of standalone DLC to Infamous 2 that just isn't connected story-wise, so that's why it serves as a side story. And the same thing could be said for Infamous Second Son, which was a fine game, but it just does not live up to what Infamous 1 and 2 did, especially Infamous 2. And First Light, again, is just that standalone DLC style of game, because we did get a decent amount of standalone DLC style games during this period of time, with stuff like Uncharted Lost Legacy as another solid example. So it would be cool to see the return of Infamous, though all things considered, I highly doubt that that's going to be happening anytime soon, if at all. And if we do get a title in the franchise, I think a remaster would be the way to go rather than a new title, because we saw that Infamous Second Son was not particularly good to begin with. But I mean, it was a fine game in its own right. But basically, Sucker Punch game designer Nate Fox, who helmed Ghost of Tsushima and the upcoming Yotei, was asked by Game Informer if he'd like to revisit the action series once again, and what he said was, I would love to work on more Infamous. I would love to see a trilogy re-release, but Sucker Punch is a one game at a time shop, and right now we are very focused on finishing Ghost of Yotei, he said. The last entry in the Infamous series was Infamous Second Son, which released in 2014, starring Troy Baker and his the main character whose name is Delton Rowe. And the follow-up DLC, Infamous Last Light, was later released and received a separate retail release. I think that came out in 2015, Infamous Last Light. I can't remember, but basically, yeah. That was basically a side game, all things considered. And so it talks about Ghosts of Yotei and like what they're kind of going for. But I wanted to mostly focus on the Infamous aspect of it, because this was back during a time in which superhero games were god-awful, because keeping in mind that most superhero games back then, and this was before or roughly around the time in which we got Batman Arkham Asylum. Before Batman Arkham Asylum, most superhero games were based off of the movies, so basically it was movie tie-in titles. And for people who have been around long enough, especially around the mid-2000s, some movie tie-in games were okay, some very, very rare were good, but a significant majority of them were god-awful, were usually 3 to 4 hours long, and just some really simplistic arena battler, arena shooter, just some arena-based, you fight a few enemies and the game doesn't evolve beyond that point. It's unfortunate to see a lot of stuff kind of go the way of the wild, and so Infamous felt like a breath of fresh air, having a superhero game that didn't feel like a superhero game, but really kind of added its own flavor because it was an original franchise that it was creating. And then, of course, we got Batman Arkham Asylum, and then from there, superhero games, licensed tie-in games just started improving from that point onwards. And in fact, we didn't get a lot of awful games. And even going into stuff like 2013's South Park The Stick of Truth, for example, those licensed games just ended up getting much better and better. And so as much as I would like to see the guys at Insomniac stop making Marvel games and actually like make more games that they've been known to make, like more Ratchet and Clank titles and stuff like that, I think they're forever going to now, moving forward, remain a Marvel game studio moving forward. And that's kind of sad to see. Maybe they'll release a Ratchet and Clank game at some point in the future. But at the moment, as far as Sucker Punch goes, the guys who made Infamous, I think they're very much going to remain making the Ghost franchise and keep that as like a mainstay franchise. Maybe they might revisit Infamous in the future, but at least for now, there's no known reason as to why they absolutely would bring anything back, because to be completely honest, I think that Sony is full of a lot of hot air talking about revisiting older franchises, because they haven't really done much in the way of doing that, especially with the PS3 generation. They've only really just been re-releasing PS1, PSP titles on PlayStation Plus, but I wish they would do more in that space, like actually release these games on physical media, for example. But maybe I'm asking for a little bit too much, but I would love to see the return of Infamous at some point in the not too distant future. But with all of that being said though, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Would you like to see Infamous come back? Is there any old PlayStation franchise that you think should make a comeback? Do you think some developer should go back and make a new entry of? Like a new Jak and Daxter, a new Ape Escape, a new Infamous? Or do you want them to just go back and remaster and remake older titles in their franchise, like a Keith the Thief from Naughty Dog, for example? I know that's a pretty obscure example, but hey, it's something right then and there. With all that being said though, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.